Welcome back to Frameworks. So far, we've talked about how to design programs that drive adaptation and how to coach habits that actually stick. But there's a much deeper question behind every rep, every habit, and every result. And that is, are you teaching your clients to think or just telling them what to do? Because long-term change doesn't come from following rules or doing this rep or this program. It comes from developing awareness, ownership, and confidence in what we are doing. So in today's episode, we're going to break down the framework that helps you develop clients who don't just execute, they actually understand, with the goal of building physical autonomy. So let's get into it. Framework 3 out of 3 that every coach should use in their daily practice, okay? This one, to be just completely transparent, is number 1, the most difficult one to A, wrap our heads around, and B, to actually be successful in. And number 2, it is, in my opinion, the most impactful habit or framework that we can implement into our coaching practice. Okay, I very specifically say impactful because when we start talking about impacting our clients and making a dent in the industry, I think this one is the one that is going to put you far and ahead of other coaches if we can just nail this thing down, but it's difficult. And also, I must be very transparent. This is one that I've been wrestling with for many years. This was first introduced to my brain about 8 years ago through James Fitzgerald, and James and I were having a conversation around this concept of physical autonomy and how our clients or the people that we coach and the coaches that we're teaching should wrap their hands around and embrace this idea of teaching their clients everything that they know so that they won't need them anymore. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is our profession. This is what we do. We need clients to need us, right? And then right when I thought that, I was like, oh, there's something to this, because that's where my head went. So it's something that I've wrestled with quite a bit. And, over the years, it's something that I've really embraced. And now it's like way up there as this like framework that I think every coach should really think through and implement in their practice. So let's talk about it, okay? The end goal of coaching isn't dependence, okay? It's development, it's autonomy, it's teaching coaches or clients, like I said, everything that we know. Okay, coaching should build self-awareness, it should build intentionality, it should build personal responsibility and ownership. Those last two are a little bit scary for some people, personal responsibility and ownership. But just like in all things, right, like we should strive for those, at least in most things. Our job is to lead people through a process where they become conscious of what they're doing and why it works. Okay, so I talked all that time and I even talk about the framework that we're actually talking about. And it's this framework around building someone's capabilities, for lack of a better term, through this process. And this process is, it starts with someone being unconscious and incompetent, and then they go to consciously incompetent, and then they go through the next stage, which would be consciously competent, and then finally they're unconsciously competent, okay? So I know that's a kind of a tongue twister and a lot to wrap your heads around, but let me go through this just section by section. Okay, the first stage in this framework is unconscious incompetence. Okay, so think about this. I don't know what I don't know. Okay, so an example is a client who is a terrible squatter and they don't know that they're a terrible squatter, but objectively we look at them and we're like, they can't squat, right? Their technique is bad, or they just have poor positions, or they don't have the capabilities to get to end ranges of motion, whatever the case is, but they don't know it. Okay, so they're unconsciously incompetent. Okay, so they're incompetent because they can't squat, and they're unconscious because they don't know that they can't squat. Okay, so this is where we start, right? If a client is here, we have to teach them. Okay, so this is before any prescription happens or anything like that. We're just teaching our client. Okay, so we're bringing awareness to that their incompetence in whatever area that this is. Okay, so this is where we're starting, but not everyone starts here, right? So remember, this is like a 4-step framework. And in this framework, we have to identify where someone is in each thing that we're working with them on. Okay, so number 1, unconscious incompetence. Okay, number 2, we are now into conscious incompetence. Okay, so this is, I now realize what I don't know. Okay, So they've learned enough to be aware of gaps, sleep issues, nutritional deficiencies, or like in our example, poor lifting technique, right? So the squatting idea. Okay, so what we've done is we started in stage one where they were unconscious about their incompetence, and we kind of brought to light their incompetence. So now they know that they're incompetent, and this is where real coaching begins. Okay, so remember what we talked about in our last episode, where we talked about we need to first teach, and then we need to get buy-in, right? Right now we're getting buy-in because now they're conscious that they're incompetent. Okay, so this is where coaching begins, and this is where we actually start to build the plan, and we start to write program designs to fix that squat, because we're not just writing random program designs that they're not connected with. They know that they're incompetent here. So now when they're training with a goal, with an outcome. They're like, I need to get better at this because I know I'm not where I want to be. Okay, so this is where real coaching begins. Okay, so framework number 3 is going to be conscious competence. So here we're talking about, I know what to do and I can do it, but I can do it with effort. Okay, so I'm going to start with a story. Okay, so this is something that I've told many of my clients, especially when it comes to aerobic work. Okay, we talk about this concept of enjoyment of aerobic work. I get a lot of people, especially in person, that when they first start, they're like, hey, I just don't like aerobic work. It's not enjoyable to me. It's really boring. It's really hard. I can't find my flow, whatever the case is. And what I talk to them about is this concept of a runner's high. And most people have heard of this concept, so it's relatable. And then I asked them, have you ever felt a runner's high? Or if I asked you to go out for a run right now, would you feel a runner's high? And most of the time they say, yes, I felt it before, but if I were to go out for a run today, I wouldn't feel it. And I would ask them why. And I don't know, it's hard, it hurts, my knees, my hips, this, that. And then I talk about this concept of capability, right? I talk about, hey, if you were capable at running, right? If you were a good runner, do you think you would experience a runner's high? And then the conversation gets really good, right? And now what we're talking about is, doing something that we're good at, and how, when we challenge ourselves, but when we're able to meet that challenge, we feel good, we feel accomplished. And that's where those hormones come from, those happy hormones of there's a challenge, I'm able to meet it, but I'm not exceeding my capabilities. So I'm in this sweet spot of flow. And that's where we start talking about their incapabilities or their incompetence, I should say, to stick with the model, in aerobic work. And as they get better, they're going to start enjoying it. Okay. And then like clockwork, we get a couple weeks in, because it doesn't take that long. They start to do it. They're, for whatever reason, they're really consistent. And that consistency leads to a couple weeks in them just enjoying doing aerobic work. They can find a flow. They start to feel that quote unquote runner's high. And it's always a really good moment where we get to talk about that, and we get to relate it to hey, you're feeling this way because we made you aware that your incompetence in this training, this aerobic work, was leading to you not enjoying it. But once you get a little bit better at it, there will be enjoyment. And then they get to that spot, and it's really good. So going back to our squat example, right? What does this look like for this person? They're consciously competent now, okay? So they're conscious. They've been conscious for a couple stages. In that last stage, they were conscious that they were incompetent. Now they're competent and they're really pushing it, right? So maybe now we're doing 6 to 8s on the squat, and we're challenging intensity. We're challenging positioning in technique in the squat, but they're able to meet that challenge and keep great technique. When we're challenging that intensity, they're able to meet that intensity, and we're not overdoing it because they're not failing and bailing under the barbell. And they're just they're feeling really good. They're feeling really accomplished, right? This is the coaching sweet spot, right? The behavior is intentional, progress is visible, and growth is actually happening, and they feel it. Right? So this is where we want to get people, and this is the coaching sweet spot. We're conscious and we're competent, and we're just doing the thing, right? We're eating the protein, we're taking the walks, we're squatting the barbell, whatever the case is, we're doing the thing, and we're in this sweet spot. But this is not where this framework ends. All right, now the framework ends with what we would just call autonomy, right? This is unconscious competence. Like we've said for years, it's like brushing our teeth, which I think is just such a good example, right? We're very unconscious when we wake up and go to the bathroom, do our thing, and then like just brush our teeth. Well, at least I hope we're doing that. We're unconscious that we're doing it, but we're competent and that we do it every single day and we don't have any issues doing it. We don't have to think about how do I put the toothpaste on the toothbrush. We don't have to think about how long do I brush my teeth, especially if we have one of those cool electric toothbrushes that does that for us. But that's beside the point, right? We're unconscious and we're competent. It's like, how do we make fitness, lifestyle, nutrition, all of these things just like brushing our teeth, right? So if we were to describe this, this is just how I live now, okay? They eat protein because they understand the benefits and they've done it for so many years that it's just something that they've adopted. That's just what they do. They train consistently because it's just what they do, right? They don't do it for an end goal anymore. They do it just out of sheer enjoyment. They do it because it's a part of their day-to-day fitness, movement, all of these things, adaptation, pushing hard. Sometimes it's just something that they not that they need, but that they really enjoy, and it's just a part of their day-to-day. Okay, they don't need hand-holding. They don't need fine tuning, or maybe they do need fine tuning if you're still coaching them across some other variables in their journey, but they just don't need the hand holding anymore. They're now competent and they're unconscious in their competency. Okay. So if let's say that they do need fine tuning or they just enjoy working with you, right? Like maybe you got them to this place of like, wellness, fitness, autonomy, but they don't fire you. They're like, hey, I just love working with you. I love the way that you do X, Y, Z. Maybe I just love our conversations. I have a few clients that I've had for like a decade now. And you know what we don't talk about in consultations? We don't really talk about training. I'll ask things like, how's the body doing? How'd you like that last split? That was good, right? Things like that. But we're more so talking about life. We're talking about their husbands and their wives and their children, their faith journeys, things like that. It's like we're consulting about things that really matter because they've already adopted all of the things around their fitness. And I was just lucky enough, grateful enough, in the right place at the right time to get them there, or to help them get themselves there. So this is that final stage of unconscious competence. From an application standpoint, I mean, gosh, how do we get people here? I think number one, it's a very long journey. Number two, I think we just have to have clarity around this being our goal. Like actually have the conversation with your clients. Like, hey, my goal is to teach you everything that I know so that you don't need me anymore, right? And I think people would just appreciate that too. Anytime I have that conversation with people, at first they're like kind of caught off guard, but then they get it, right? It's like, hey, you're not going to be with me forever. You might move, I might stop coaching, you might stop needing me, whatever the case is, or wanting me. And then my goal, whenever that thing happens, whatever that inevitable thing is that you don't go to the next coach, you don't go to the next, gym facility, whatever the case is. It's just like, no, I now know how to do this. I'm like leaving you, or I'm firing you because you've taught me everything, right, that I need to know to go off and do this on my own. That's just such an awesome place to be, right? But we just have to be really clear out of the gates that is the goal. Okay. So, as you're going through that journey, there is no like you start here, then you go here, and then you go there outside of the framework, the 4-step framework. But there's no exact in terms of like, this is exactly how you get from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. But just some ideas, ask reflective questions. What did you notice in that training session? How did you feel after that meal? What habit felt easiest to sustain this training cycle, this month, this week, this year, whatever the case is? Use every win as a teaching moment. Don't just say good job. Say why it worked and try to connect it to, other areas of opportunity. So that is framework number 3 out of 3. If you missed number 1 or number 2, go back in the previous 2 episodes and give those a watch. I appreciate you guys. Just, any questions, any comments, anything like that, let's make sure that we're throwing them in the comments. Let us know if this was helpful to you guys. I appreciate you just bearing with me and allowing me to kind of spew my brain out and my thoughts over the last few weeks. But I do hope that the last 3 episodes were helpful. That's it for today, and we will see you next week with a fresh episode.